Good morning, everyone. I think we have a relatively short agenda today, it looks like. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes, including the ones from June 30th, which we're hiding last time we met?
Yes.
Okay, we can look at June 30th first, if there's any corrections. FYI, I took both these sets and I'm just trying to find a reasonable format for them that begins to meet the open meeting law requirements for minutes. So I'm not a good minute taker. So if there's mistakes, additions, or whatever, let me know and I'll make note of this. So for June 30th, and I'm also trying to find a balance between long and short. But anyway,
I move that they be approved as distributed.
you move that. Nobody has comments. Oh, come on, you guys. Okay, roll call vote then. Richard moves. Is there a second? Clarissa. Okay, and we can go geographically, and that would be Arlington. Aye. Lexington.
Yes.
Lincoln.
Aye.
And Concord. Aye. Beth, you agree? I hope. And Minuteman.
Aye.
No. Okay, thank you. And then for July 21st, any comments or changes?
I move that they be accepted as distributed.
Okay, who seconded? I'm sorry.
George.
Oh, George, thank you. Okay, Arlington,
Yes.
Lexington,
Yes.
Lincoln,
Aye. Yes.
Concord. I saw Beth. There you are. Yes, and Minuteman.
Yes.
That was way too easy. Thank you, everybody. As you may have noted, we're making some progress getting the minutes all pulled back together. I still owe some from the working group and from earlier, but now we'll begin to post those, and all the town clerks are getting notice as well. So if the towns have places to put them, that would be good. Otherwise, people can always go to the byway page for the town of Concord. So moving on to project updates. We don't have Chris with us today, but he said that there is a new person hired to deal with Mass Highways external programs. And so hopefully next meeting, he'll be able to bring that person. He and I are hearing the same thing about progress on the grant. And that's what I had heard at first was grant notifications would be in September, October. Now it seems more likely early October. So that has some implications for us in terms of going forward. And we can maybe talk about that a little bit later. But Simone, would you like to start with your item on the Great American Outdoors Act projects for the park?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I had sent to Anne to distribute to the board my short PowerPoint, but I will also attempt to share my screen. So apologize if I'm not able to make this work. Oh, it's disabled. So I don't know, Anne, if you can share it, and then I can just say next slide if that works.
Sure, let me try.
Okay.
While you're doing that, this is Paul Fenway. I had trouble using the Zoom website, so I'm using the teleconference.
Great. I'll make sure I'm describing the slides for you. Wonderful. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. I wanted to give you an update where the park is on our Great American Outdoors Act Legacy Restoration Fund project. Next slide, please. So just, again, I think we all know where the park is, but just for understanding, so there are 4 units comprised of the park. There's our Battle Road unit, which is the easternmost unit, which covers Lexington, Lincoln, and Concord. Then we have the Wayside unit, which is in Concord, along with the North Bridge unit, which is also in Concord, and then our westernmost unit, which is the Barrett Farm unit. Next slide, please. So for those of you who might be unfamiliar with the Great American Outdoors Act, so this was a bipartisan legislation that was passed in 2020. And what it provides to the Park Service as well as to other public lands is funding to address the backlog maintenance. The National Park Service is getting the lion's share of this distribution, so approximately 70% of it each year for 5 years, up to $1.3 billion a year. So this funding will be available through 2025. And again, the focus of this funding is to address backlog maintenance. This is not for new capital improvements, nor is it operational support for parks. But again, the entire National Park Service, all parks had the opportunity to apply for legacy restoration funding. And great news for us here at Minuteman. Next slide. Is that we were FY22 recipients of legacy restoration funding. So we received approximately $27 million, which will be addressing a whole host of things for us here at the park. We have multiple phases that's associated with it. Our first phase will be focusing on the buildings and structures to include rehabilitation of some of our most iconic buildings, including what's shown here on the slide, the Captain William Smith House. In addition, the funding will help us address rehabilitation needs for the landscape, as well as repairs for the trails, both at the Battle Road unit and the North Bridge unit. We'll be doing conservation work for our stone and bronze monuments, and then also replacing approximately 300 wayfinding and identification signs. Next slide, please. So just a little bit more on the buildings and structures. We should just about be having our contract awarded. Our end of fiscal year is 9/30, and we're coming down to the wire. So hoping to get some good news today or tomorrow that this contract has been awarded. But in addition to the contract piece, we will also be using our in-house preservation crews with the National Park Service. So they are out of our HACE group, which is based out of Lowell. So HACE stands for Historic Architecture, Conservation, and Engineering. So they're comprised of all of our preservation specialists. And both the contractor and the preservation specialists will be doing work on a variety of buildings throughout the park, in both the Battle Road unit, including the Wayside, as well as work here in the North Bridge unit. The only unit that is not getting work as part of the Great American Outdoors Act is the Barrett Farm unit, because we didn't have backlog maintenance there in the same way that we did in the other 3 units for the park. Next slide, please. So for the landscape and trails, again, a lot of it will be focused on the Battle Road Trail, rehabilitation of that, including repairs in a variety of different ways, reestablishing the trail width, which has sort of bled out beyond the original width. Just over time that happens. Also to address the stone walls throughout the park, cleaning those, restacking those where needed. We'll also be looking to make some improvements to some of the drainage issues that we have in sort of different spots on the trails to eliminate some of the ponding. You didn't really see that this summer because we were so dry, but you know, traditionally we've had some spots that are a little mucky, so we're going to try to address those. And then for the landscaping, that will include sort of vegetation rejuvenation, invasive plant management, some pruning for trees that are needed. And then if there are hazardous trees, of course, removing hazardous trees to make our different trail areas safe for the public. Next slide, please. So signage, and this is one that I think will be of most interest to the committee. So we have about 300 wayfinding and identification signs throughout the park. They are of different designs coming from different installation periods and in different conditions. Some are much rougher than others. So this will allow us to comprehensively replace our signage program here at the park. And this is not for waysides, our interpretive waysides. This is for wayfinding. So essentially all of our directional signs and park introduction signs. Because our goal is for the project to be done primarily in time for the anniversary, we're actually going to have to split the signage portion of this project up just because of the amount of time it takes for design approvals, fabrication, and installation. So we're going to do a smaller kind of phase one for our signage, and that will target our primary signs like along Route 2A, sort of the entrance signs, as well as a new park ID sign. And then sort of the bulk of the rest of the signage will be done in the second phase. The design and fabrication will occur, but installation would come after the anniversary. Next slide, please. So these are kind of the typical signs that we're going to be replacing as part of this phase one. So this work is being designed in-house by Harpers Ferry Center. So they are our primary signage identification program leads for the National Park Service. So you can see they're in various conditions. So these signs will all be replaced. In particular, the bottom one, which shows that's the entrance sign if you're coming into the park from the east, from Lexington. It's kind of hidden in the woods. So we're actually going to take that sign out and we're going to have a new gateway sign. So next slide, please. So some of our visitors had an interesting sort of double take. We had Harpers Ferry had sent us sort of these big banners to give us a sense to kind of get out on site and get a sense of scale and where we could potentially put our new gateway sign. So we definitely had some folks do a double take thinking that they accidentally ended up out west. So you'll see here it says Grand Canyon. Obviously our sign will not say Grand Canyon, but we're looking at two potential locations. One is at Fisk Hill along Route 2A, and then the other one is right sort of that area of land before the Widmore House near Old Airport Road. So those are the two potential locations we're looking at. In particular for us is safety and the concern that folks might see it as they're driving along 2A. And if you're one of those folks that love to go to a national park, sees the main entrance sign and you sort of jump out and you take a picture, we're cognizant of that. So we're leaning toward the Fisk Hill location because we do have that parking lot area. Plus we have the split rail fence. So that would discourage visitors from pulling over on Route 2A to, jump out and have their kids run up to the sign. So we're still kind of weighing the pros and cons of those two locations. And would love if you all have any input as well. Next slide, please. So these are three examples at three other parks of sort of this gateway sign. The one on the bottom, which is the Thomas Edison one, ignore the fact that it has a brick base. Obviously we will go with a stone palette for us. But that's the type that we're leaning towards. So just again, to kind of give you a sense of the scale. So the little boy at the edge of the Thomas Edison sign, so that's my youngest son, Wyatt. So he's also the one that's now standing in the Russell Cave National Monument sign. So obviously the scale is a little bit different. We were contemplating the one that had the column on the sign, which is the Parkway Visitor Center sign from Natchez Trace Parkway. But we think again that the scale might be a little bit too big. So we're thinking of the smaller one, which is what you see at the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please.
That's so nice, Simone. I'm so excited. Some
Yeah.
of those signs are almost 30 years old, I bet.
Yeah. So, and it'll be nice because
They're older than that. They're falling down.
yes, some of them are missing, so you just see them.
Yes.
Yeah. So it'll be great for us to have consistency for our visitors to understand, because they'll see they're at other parks. When they see it here, they'll understand that they're within the national park, and there'll be consistency throughout all 4 units. So we're really excited about this. Again, because there's so many signs, Harper's Ferry only has the capacity to design in-house a handful of them. So those will be the most important signs we want to definitely make sure are in before the anniversary. And then we will be contracting the rest for a comprehensive signage plan. And then that will lead to fabrication and installation. So that'll take a little bit more time. So again, we're kind of splitting it up since April 2025 is a hard deadline for us. And we're just trying to be as efficient as we can in getting as many elements of this project done in a realistic schedule.
So the entry signs are phase 1 or phase 2? Phase 1?
Yeah, so this would be phase 1, correct? So next slide, please. So the last piece of our GOA project is monument conservation. We are proposing that we will use our in-house conservators with our HASTE group. This work will just primarily be focusing on cleaning and waxing for our bronze monuments and statues, and then cleaning and repointing joints if needed for our stone monuments. Again, this work will probably be done closer towards the anniversary, because we don't want to do it at the beginning and then we have landscape trail work, building work. So this will be done closer to the anniversary, but it will be done in time for the anniversary. And again, this is just to making sure we're looking top notch for the 250th, and we're not expecting any major repairs are needed to any of the monuments. So it'll be primarily cleaning, waxing, and repointing if needed for any of the stone. Beth, I see your hand.
Thanks, Simone. Will any of the work to the monument mean things are not available to visitors at any time, or will they just be working during the day while visitors are visiting?
Yeah, no, so the goal would be that we'll essentially be working as visitors are all around us. So there will be some impacts for the trails, which we'll have a better idea of scheduling once we have a contractor on board, because we're going to be doing the trail work in sections. And so there'll be impacts where we'll have to have some closures during, the actual work. It's difficult to do reroutes because, then it sort of just dumps you into the woods or into wetland areas. So, we're replacing all the boardwalks. Plus we're doing a reroute by the Inferrara house. So where the route, the trail right now goes right up against the road. So now that'll be sort of tucked a little bit behind the property. So it's a bit more scenic, as well as it's much safer for the visitors. So once the park has a better idea of scheduling for the different phases, as well as the different pieces of each of the projects, we'll be rolling that information out to the towns and to the public. In addition, there'll be some construction staging that'll impact some of the parking spaces in the different parking lots, because obviously we don't want them to do major laydown areas in the park itself. So we'll be trying to keep that on the pavement. So those two will have some impacts to visitors over the next couple of years. Again, the goal, with the exception of sort of the second piece of the signage, all of the work will be done in time for the anniversary. That's a very, for any of you who've been involved in construction, schedules. That is a very, very aggressive schedule. So the delay of the FY22 budget kind of put us several months behind where we would have liked to have been, but that's just the nature of things. So, but once these contracts start being issued, we're going to start work very, very fast. So that way we can keep that deadline at the forefront. And my next slide was just questions. So any other questions? Go ahead, Richard.
Sure. So it's a great presentation. It sounds like you're doing a lot of really good things. Obviously, the condition of the trails is important to us because that's a secondary way of people getting around, and it needs a lot of help. So that's good. In terms of signage, so we have a grant application in, and we'll find out next month whether we have it or not. But I think whether we get it or not, the towns are going to have to fund signs if the feds don't. And what that entails is probably a trip where we go along the whole byway, and in the different towns, the DPW engineering folks are going to be there. MassDOT, people from the committee to figure out where signs are, how they should look, and all the rest of that stuff. And obviously, through the park, that is layered on with you folks. And so we need to make sure we articulate your signage and the Battle Road signage along with MassDOT and with the towns and you folks. Have you thought much about how that piece fits together?
Yeah, I mean, for us, as well as for the signage associated with the Route 2A project. So we did have a preliminary meeting with MassDOT to talk about our signage here and the importance of making sure we're coordinating, so that way we don't have a sudden, sort of explosion of numbers of signs. We want to be strategic. So that way there's some efficiencies, if efficiencies can be identified, as well as making sure that there's not a sign and then 5 feet, after that there's another sign and another sign. In terms of the byway signs, the other byway signs that I've seen, they traditionally are not huge signs. They're relatively small signs, but they're iconic in terms of identifying the type of byway that you're in. So I think once the committee is able to, especially if we do get this grant, just sort of flesh out what the signage will be looking like, and then coordinating how that is integrated into along both 2A and other places. I mean, I want to make sure that everything is complementary with each other, because it is a coherent resource for visitors. And then just again, making sure there's not an inadvertent explosion of more signage than we really want, where it becomes just clutter, more so than informative for the public.
Simone, if there's already been a meeting with Mass DOT, shouldn't the byway folks have been included with that, or at least included with future meetings between the park and Mass DOT to ensure that kind of coordination?
So the preliminary meeting we had with MassDOT was to understand what their permitting process is, since several of the signs that are currently in place are technically within their right of way. So it was more of us understanding what we're going to need to do because our schedule is so accelerated. So that was the goal of our meeting with MassDOT last week, was just, this is what we're thinking of. We're just looking to replace it. What is the process for us to get permission to do that?
That's very reassuring, because right now we don't know what the 100% plans look like.
And Nancy,
yes, the meeting wasn't for 2A, the meeting was for our signage.
Yeah.
No, I know.
Nancy, we have to go to the MassDOT to get permission to put up our byway signs, and we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm getting to the overall question of coordination with all the parties.
Right. Jane, I see your hand.
Thank you. I live right behind the ranger station in Lincoln. And so I'm up and down Route 2A all the time. And I'm really am concerned about the signs. And I'm really glad you understand that people take pictures in front of the entry sign. And so you have an area to pull off. And I think, the sign near the Widower House is better than Fisk Hill because more people enter that way, I think. But I'm concerned now, you've got the Battle Road. I mean, you've got the North Bridge and you've got the Barrett House. But
What was the time?
9:30. Lexington Road and Bypass Road. How are you going to have signage that people can pull off? And will they also be the stone or and large? I just was curious. You may not be at that point yet, but I was just curious to know the other direction because they keep falling over. The weeds are growing up over them. It looks great for a couple of years, and then and even us on Bedford Road, we have put up that sign. It's fallen over, covered with snow. We put it back up. It's like. But I don't expect a stone one there, but I do hope that maybe Lexington Road bypass, because you're entering from, or maybe even Concord, you would have it at the Miriam House. I don't know. Curious.
Sure. So the gateway sort of icons sign that has the masonry base. So that one would be, we'd only have essentially one. One part of it is cost. Part of it is space, so that will be at the east end of the park. But if you saw in my slide, the other signs that are sort of populated throughout the rest of the park in other sort of entrance ways.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. I don't want you to spend too much of my money. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. But you still want to, well, I don't know if you would have, I'm concerned about signage behind stone walls where people do pull off. You can see that they've done that. It's all bare ground. So, good luck for that. I appreciate the thought.
Yeah, no, it's something myself as one of those types of visitors that, pulls over, screams at my kids to get out and take a quick picture. So that is something that's on our mind too, is making sure that our signage, especially the gateway sign, because that is sort of a prototypical thing that you see when you're going into.
And traffic has increased horrendously. Seems like when school started, so that, there's traffic there all day long. And, you throw in the tourists and oh my gosh, so. Get them off the road at least for a few minutes before they get run over.
But yes, but no, that is something that we're taking into consideration. It was funny when we were out over by the Whitmore House, and we had the sign, like a Coke truck literally pulled right over as we were there to ask us directions. So, kind of demonstrating, we definitely don't want.
And that intersection is going to be small, made smaller by the state's new plan. So it's not going to be generous like it is now. So good luck.
That's
Thank you. Sheila, I see your hand.
Thanks, Simone. That was a good presentation. And yeah, I'm excited about all the things that'll happen. So it's good. But I did have a question about the gateway sign. I realize this is sort of there's a state road that runs through the park, but I think of all the parks as having something on their signs that sort of personalize it to the region. Will there be anything on these signs? You said it would be stone.
Right. So the base of it, the example that I showed with the Thomas Edison sign. So example, they had a brick base. So for us, brick is not really what calls out to the public when they see the palette, when they're walking or biking or driving through the park. Stone is really sort of our iconic look. So we would be utilizing stone for the base for our gateway sign. For all of the other signs, they will have sort of, the prototypical brown, NPS brown posts.
Right.
For those that are right along 2A, there are requirements. They have to be breakaway posts. So if God forbid, there's an accident, somebody hits the sign, it releases versus, becomes sort of a stationary object. So there's a safety component. For the gateway sign, one of the requirements for MassDOT, because it has a masonry base, it has to be 14 to 16 feet from the white line edge. So, these are things that we'll also take into consideration of where we have to be within the clear zone. So that way the signage is visible. whether it's our gateway sign or the other types of sign, but also that we're adhering to the safety requirements, so that way they don't become potential objects that cars could crash into and have significantly more damage than if they weren't designed in such a way to be breakaway for, and hopefully nobody crashes into our new signs. It'll be nice to have them standing for a long period of time.
Yeah, no, yeah, because it'll be a long time before we get another one. Do you think the stone will be local, sort of reflecting in local color?
Yes, I mean,
No.
that would be my goal, is that we want to make sure that it's not a color that is off. You know, we have a very distinctive look with our stone and the stone walls, and not just within the park, but outside of the park as well. So that's the palette that we want to go with. We want consistency, and we want visual cues and recognition, so that way when visitors are driving through the park and they see our stone walls, when they go to the gateway sign, that is sort of the visual match that they're going to see. So that's something that's very important to me, is making sure that we get that right.
Awesome, great, thank you.
Sure.
I saw Anne's hand up a minute ago.
I thought so. And Jane, is yours a legacy hand, or do you have a new hand?
I have a new hand. May I suggest that you put your stone sign in the parkland and not near or onto state land?
Mhm.
You know, you're going to have if the 16 feet from the center line is ends up being all on parkland, good. But if it impinges anywhere on the state, you're going to have a headache. I can see it coming down the park. So
Yeah, no,
otherwise, I'm so excited about all your ideas. I got so many things I'd like to say, but not here.
yeah, no, our goal will be to have that on parkland.
Simone, can I interrupt you for a minute? If I know Anne is still there somewhere. Anne, can you reset the Zoom link? And some people may still be trying to get in using the Zoom link. Sarah, you just got in, right? And Paul suggested that might be possible to reset that link. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Richard, I see your hand.
Yeah, just a quick thing following up on Sheila's thing. So when you say stone, I hope you're not looking at what's on that sign, sort of like the manufactured cut stone. You're talking about natural boulders that are like the stone walls.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep. And if you've been to various different parks that have the stone, you see that there's different variations to it. You know, they make a conscious effort to try to have the palette match the particular park. You know, like if you go down to Great Smokies, so their stone, their wall is very different from the one that I showed that's at Russell Cave, which is in Alabama, which is different from, if you've ever been to the one down in Texas, Waco, Mammoth. It's a much more like yellow tint to their stone. So they do, you know, we do make sure that we're making adjustments based on where you are in the country, so that way there's consistency, and you don't want anything out of place, because then it just looks
Wrong.
yeah, thank you.
Wrong, just wrong.
Is there, excuse me, is there any plan to deal with the signs along Route 95, which right now match the park signs, but may not after you do whatever you're going to do?
Yeah, so those blue signs, you know, where it says like attractions, you know, and then there's kind of each individual. So those are something that we want to talk to MassDOT about, because there's actually inconsistencies with how the park is identified on those signs.
Right.
One has like Minuteman Park and it's in blue. Other one has like, you know, Minuteman, you know, but it's in brown. So MassDOT in our conversation last week was able to provide us sort of the guidance on how to get those changed and what the submission requirements are. So I'm hoping, I don't know if we'll be able to get it done in time for the anniversary, but those are things that we want to address, so that way those are consistent as well on actual 95.
That's a good point, that Bob that Bob brings up. If you're coming to the park from Cambridge on Route 2, there's a proper National Park Service sign that Lou Sedaris was insistent on when they were doing a lot of work on Route 2A. So I hope that MassDOT will remember that they can make exceptions. And they have in the past, and we'll see how much they use their power to make exceptions when the 2A plans come through. But they could, those blue signs just don't tell the story or really identify. Anyway, so great. That was a great question, Bob.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Nancy, I know time. Are we allowed to?
I was just gonna, we're at 10:38, so we're doing pretty well, but anybody else have anything? Clarissa, I see maybe one last
Yes.
question.
It's not a question. I just wanted to tell Simone, if you get stuck and need stone or bronze conservators, call me because I have a host of names for you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Clarissa. I appreciate that.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thanks, Simone. That's great. That's great. It's gonna be very exciting. Hang on, everybody. If we get the grant, this is gonna be a busy place. So fingers crossed. Okay, Josh, do you have anything for us today?
I am seeing an update in the system that's pretty recent, so I haven't been able to get more information on it yet. But it looks like the add date for the project is currently pushed to next fall. I need to speak to the project manager and to Tim to understand more about that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's, and then you may not have this information about the status of the Section 106 process and the finalization of plans.
I don't, but
Okay,
I can bring back a question to the folks more involved with that if that would be helpful.
yeah, that'd be great. And I think you did say that you had posted again the bridge 128 bridge plans. Did I get your message right?
That was for the resurfacing project, not for the bridge.
Oh, okay. So I think you also said you didn't find anything, no design plans for the 128 bridge project.
I hadn't looked at the 128 project. I was just looking at that resurfacing project. I have to pull up the 128. I think actually, hold on. I remember I emailed, I think Sheila about that a little while ago.
And I think Lexington and Lincoln probably had those at one point in time, but Bob, I remember you were not clear about what those plans were.
Now you're talking about plans for the bridge and the two
Yeah,
rotary
I was asking
roundabouts.
about the 128 plans, yeah, if there were.
We've never seen any plans. I don't know any more than whatever's transpired at our meetings here. I still don't understand the logic behind it, but maybe somebody else does and can explain it. Right now,
Yeah,
the configuration works as it is, and so I really didn't see the motivation for changing it. But
yeah, Ross provided some information about that. I tried to include it in the minutes. They expect a slowdown in traffic. They expect increase in open space. Trying to remember what else. So there were some of those things, but I've never seen like a design plan. And I think if one of those was available, that's what we've been asking for 128 bridge project.
Yeah, and I apologize, Nancy. I thought you were talking about the other projects, so that's what I've been looking at. But I'll get right back to you after this meeting and see if there's anything I can give you from this.
Okay, and if you send it to me and Ann, we can get that posted on Concord's site. So keep watching the Byway page on Concord's website. Okay.
So I can provide a little bit more information. So to make sure people understand, this bridge replacement has nothing to do with the 2A project. In fact, the 50%, 75% design was finalized back in 2015. It was scheduled to be reconstructed in 2016. And because of some bureaucratic things with federal funding, it didn't get funded. Otherwise, it would have been built in 2016. To narrow the roadway, the bridge is functionally obsolete. It has a plan for all of the reconstructed bridges that they're.
Yeah, and that's been before. Oh,
But
Richard, Richard,
Yeah,
Richard, you keep floating in and out in terms of
Sorry.
what you're saying. But anyway, yes, we went over that at the last meeting.
yeah,
So,
and
Thank you,
and
thank you.
yeah, all of those interchanges MassDOT's doing is going to have the double rotaries, the double roundabouts.
Yeah, okay. Okay, anything else from DOT or any questions related to this? Where did Sheila go? Jane, do you have another question?
Yeah, Bob said that that intersection with the lights and 4 streets, it doesn't work ideally well, because if you're going west.
Jane, can I interrupt you? I'm sorry. This project is basically ready to go to bid, as I understand it. So
This project with this rotary?
I'm sorry,
Which project we talked about?
the 128 bridge project.
Does that have a rotary with it?
Yeah, why don't you give me a call after the meeting?
I will. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks, Josh. I see no other questions. I think we can do member updates. We can start with Arlington.
Okay, Sheila's got her hand up.
Oh, I saw that. Now I see her again. Okay. Sheila, you were asking a question about 128.
No, I have a member update, but I'll wait my turn.
Oh, okay. You're next. I'm trying to go
Okay.
geographic just so I don't get turned around and lost in the whole thing.
Okay, the Arlington update is that we lost our beloved Ally Carter.
Yeah.
And Beth, I want to call you about the website and see if you could, she suggested you as somebody to talk to about making changes to the website, et cetera. Would that be okay?
Of course.
Which website? The Battle Road Scenic Byway website?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you. Arlington has a brand new town manager. We have a brand new planning director who came from Lowell, and we lost Ally to Lowell. So it's been we've done a switch, but we will all miss Ally. And I know that George and Paul can talk about some work that's being done. That's wonderful. George or Paul, can you talk about?
Yeah, this is Paul. This is Paul Fenley. I was unable to access the Zoom site, but I have been participating by phone. In terms of report for Arlington, I'll say that this coming Saturday afternoon is the last date for the beer garden on the grounds of the Jason Russell House. It's been an enormously successful and popular program for us. So if any of you can take some time out Saturday afternoon, come and see the Jason Russell House. Tours are available, and there is live music and very, very tasty variety of beers and grilled foods. So last one of the season.
So I would just like to say I went to one of those beer garden events, and everything Paul just said is wonderful. Or correct. It was wonderful.
And we're
Okay,
also
well,
finishing up the geothermal work at the Jason Russell House. George, are you still on? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the only things we have left on the geothermal project is lawn restoration, which was a bit challenging because we could only replant the lawn where the drilling had taken place. in early April and didn't get much of a growing season, but the lawn looks green, amazingly enough, through the drought. And we'll be doing a little bit more reseeding. We're also building a door, an insulated door to keep the bulkhead separated from the cellar. One of the features of the geothermal that we didn't even ask for, but they put in, is they bleed a little bit of heat into the basement of the Jason Russell house, and that should keep our pipes from freezing, which have been an annual event. So pretty successful. We will be returning several $1,000s to the town as well. So we did this on budget, on time, and we'll be returning some of the funding.
That's great. Okay, Lexington.
I don't really have an update, but I had a question. The town of Lexington received notification for comments, under NEPA because the Hanscom Air Force Base is doing work on their Sarton gate off of 2A or down the drive. And they're moving for commercial traffic to the gate, that old gate behind the visitor center off of Airport Way. And I was curious what the national park thought of this project. I mean, I guess it needs to be done, but
Sure, and thanks, Sheila. I actually just sent a letter to Lexington Historical Commission because we were CC'd on the letter that the base had sent to Brona Simon at the SHPO's office. So we had the chance to meet with them on site right before the Labor Day holiday. So their project, which will be starting later this month, I guess within the next couple of weeks, is going to be an 18-month time period for their main gate. So to try to alleviate some of the traffic, they're proposing to open up gate 2 for commercial, because they have to do the inspections for the commercial vehicles, the trucks that are coming through. So it'll be a one-way for just entry into the base with an occasional, if they have to turn a truck around, the truck will go back down Old Airport Road. But the goal, the way they explained it to us, is that it really is just to alleviate the issues that are going to happen at the main gate as they're doing the construction. So it'll just be for the 18 months. They're going to set up their, the way that the property line is so they have, the fence line and the gate itself, but the Air Force actually owns a considerable amount of land beyond the actual gate. So there's a paved area there right now. So that's where they're going to actually set up the, the tent that they have for the trucks to go through so that they can do the inspection before they actually get onto the base. So the things that we flagged for them to consider is we wanted an understanding of any temporary signage that they're going to have to put out to guide the commercial vehicles, whether it's on Old Airport Road or on Route 2A itself. We flagged for them to make sure that they talk to MassDOT, because there'll probably be some overlap between MassDOT's 2A project and their project, since it's 18 months. For us, we flagged the concern about idling. If they have a lot of trucks coming through, it takes time to get the trucks inspected. So, are they going to idle? That affects visitor experience for us. And we also have that crosswalk. So we asked that they put some temporary signage in the middle of the crosswalk, state law yield to pedestrians, just to visually cue for the truck drivers, not to come barreling down Old Airport Road, because we do have visitors that are going to cross over to get towards Parker's Revenge. And then, we just reminded them about the Stout residence, because it's right outside their property, and to not block their driveway. So those are the things that we flagged for them on during the on-site discussion. It looked like most of that was captured in the letter that they had sent to the SHPO's office. But in my response letter, I did note the signage, because that was not captured, the temporary signage, and coordination with MassDOT.
Do you know what the queue is going to look like? Because I've seen the commercial truck queue on Hanscom Drive, and it can be considerable.
Yep, so when you're going down, right before you get to the gate, sort of tucked behind the trees is that paved area. So that's where they're gonna set up the tent, which is similar to what they have at the gate now. So because it's gonna be tucked off the road behind the trees and the vegetation, and it is temporary, it's just for the 18 months, we didn't have a huge, and it's technically on their property. So we didn't have a huge concern about that. We were just glad it wasn't further down Old Airport Road that they were proposing in the middle of the road. So the fact that it's one-way traffic, that made us feel a little bit better, other than, obviously if they do have to turn a truck around, but that doesn't happen very often. But the bigger thing for us was the potential for them to just be idling, if they're busy, how many trucks down Old Airport Road would that be? And then how long are they idling for? Because it's loud, obviously it's not good for the environment. It would, from our perspective, it affects the visitor experience. So
Did they
we're-
have a number? Did they
um,
have an estimated
they-
number of guys in the queue?
They said that they typically have 3 to 5 trucks sort of, I guess, grouped together trying to go through at a time, and it takes a few minutes per truck
Yeah.
to do the sweep. So
Interesting.
we just asked for some clarification of what potential mitigation measures might be. And then we flagged for them, of course, Patriots Day, and that they have to find alternate scenarios for those, handful of days a year, because the road will be closed and there'll be thousands of people on that road, and you cannot have trucks coming in.
This is Paul Fennelly. I have a question. What is the expected time period for this project at Hanscom Field?
So they told us it's 18 months. And they're kicking off this month, so 18 months from here. So they said that they'll be done well ahead of the anniversary, which was, another concern of ours, obviously, but they said, nope, we'll be done and gone by then.
Simone, so right over there, I guess it's Merritt Road rather than Airport Road, but there are a couple of residences, I think. Have those folks been informed about what's going to be happening?
We told them to make sure that they did, especially the Stouts, because the Stouts are the closest to the gate. Even if they just have 1 or 2 truck backup, that would be right sort of adjacent to their driveway. So we stressed to them the importance of being a good neighbor to reach out to the residences along the road. They said, yes, we will take care of that. We said, okay, just again, stressing, we really would highly recommend it to mitigate any potential issue before they get started.
Do you know if they're gonna like restripe the crosswalk and maybe they could do a do not block striping on that road?
I don't think they were proposing any new striping for us. The key for safety is we wanted to make sure that the crosswalk was signed more clearly than it is now. So that way it's a visual cue for both our visitors as well as for the truck drivers. What was not in that package that they had sent to the SHPO was what their proposed temporary signage is going to be along the road as well as 2A. So in our response letter, we were asking for that information.
Okay.
And they're starting like any day now.
Yeah, this is a different
The
approach.
compliance, but the.
Yeah, because their original compliance had not proposed opening gate 2A, and I think as they have been working through the final design pieces and the actual logistics of it, I think that's what triggered for them realizing that it could be a nightmare trying to get the trucks through, and that's why they are pivoting to utilize gate 2 in this way. So they themselves are kind of scrambling to get the plan together with construction imminent and starting.
Okay, that's Lexington, then Lincoln.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, Richard, sorry. Richard.
So a piece of that, obviously the Center Streetscape is moving along, but I hope somebody realizes that for Lexington residents along Airport Road, Merritt Street, that's the only access that Lexington residents have, and that they do talk to those people as well. The other piece, Nancy, is the Air Force never contacted you or the Battle Road for the Battle Road. Is that correct?
No,
I would suggest that you contact them and try and make sure they understand who we are. And if it's appropriate, maybe we should invite them to one of our meetings. They're our neighbor. And once we get the stakeholders group, they'll be part of that. They should be one of our stakeholders. So you should talk to them and figure out how to best make sure they know who we are.
yeah, okay, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now Lincoln. Thank you, Richard. Lincoln,
Yeah, so the big-
we're actually, we are now running a little short, but I
Okay.
think we have to get through the updates.
Okay, Lincoln is going ahead with putting a solar facility on the capped landfill, which is part of the transfer station site. And that's access through a driveway off of Route 2A, maybe 100 yards down from the Paul Revere capture site, if you're not familiar with it. And so that driveway is an easement across park land that the town of Lincoln has strictly for the use of the transfer station. So there was a neighborhood
Yeah.
meeting between the town administrator and the neighborhood, the Mill Street neighborhood, just yesterday, informing the neighborhood that the Park Service has graciously allowed, and Simone, I hope you can confirm this, that the Park Service has allowed Lincoln to use that driveway for the additional use of installing and providing the minimal maintenance that will be needed for this solar facility, which eliminates the need for a driveway from the transfer station site out to Mill Street, which was a great concern to the neighborhood. So Simone, did I say that correctly? Is that in fact the situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so I had the chance to meet with the town manager. So we're gonna issue a permit that will allow the construction access on the transfer station road, so that way it can be built, and then the occasional maintenance vehicle that would utilize it to access it. For us, the big plus was because the town responded to comments that the park had provided earlier on when some of the infrastructure was going to be on 2A, that they're doing everything they need to do on Lincoln owned land in terms of running cables and that type of stuff. So that's huge for us. So yes, so we're going to issue the permit to allow them to use the transfer access road for construction access.
Okay, well, it was a great resolution and the residents all breathed a big sigh of relief. So thank you.
That's great. Okay, anything else? Things are heating up in Lincoln.
You Sleepy Hollow? Yeah, that's about as exciting as it gets.
I will add just one thing really quick. We are working on our complete streets prioritization plan, and part of that is we have what's called a wiki mapping site up. Folks in town can place points, routes on a map with different areas of concern regarding walking, cycling, ADA accessibility, and public transportation. Some of those points are near the Battle Road, so we may report back on that. I've also been working on trying to get a meeting with Massport regarding the Vandenberg Gate project that they're doing. That's part of their kind of reworking of their Hanscom Drive area. And while they're not subject to our zoning, I'm trying to look at the lighting issues. They did notify abutters of this project. They were required to by the Conservation Commission because a small part of it is in Lincoln. So there will be a public hearing, I believe the first meeting in October, to the Conservation Commission about the project. So there was some sort of notification about at least a portion of the project.
That's interesting. Okay. Any other comments, Sarah? Concord, Beth, I think you've got the big one. There she is. Beth, are you still with us? Maybe not.
It's gone, yeah.
Yeah, she may have had to leave. I know that the new trolley system is going well, although there have been some bugs in terms of maybe a driver not showing up here or there. Ridership is.
What system is going well, Nancy?
There's a pilot trolley system that's being tested out
Okay.
with the town and I think with park participation, but I'm not sure how far that goes. So it's to support visitors and to hit historical sites around town. So the other thing that I reported last time was the Community Preservation Committee continues to support and work with the Wright Tavern people on the stabilization of that National Historic Landmark and their hopes to open something, although it's not clear yet what, by 2025. So Simone, I think you just gave us an update. Do you have
Yes,
anything
I have
else
nothing
to add? Okay. A next meeting, we could schedule our next meeting for October 27th, but I think we should keep our calendars clear for the 13th and the 20th if we can at 10 o'clock in case we get news about the grant. And we should be thinking a little bit about how we would like to manage that grant. And I'll try, I will be back in touch with MAPC about what their role would be and what are the options for managing that grant, which involves so many entities. And it would be great to maybe simplify things for them, which would also really reduce the costs of their management. So that's coming up, but if we could tentatively say the next meeting would be October 20th or 27th. The 27th if we don't hear about the grant, and the 20th if we do. Okay. And there was one last thing very quickly. If George was suggesting that we meet at Arlington so we could all go see the Jason Russell House. I've never seen it. I would suggest that going around and moving our meetings physically is probably a good idea at some point. But I would personally love it if Arling would maybe arrange for Byway Committee folks to go to the Jason Russell House and make it a field trip, and maybe we could have cookies at the cookie place at the same time. But if George, if you want to say something about that.
Yeah, I lost power briefly, so I didn't hear all of the conversation, but we would be happy to host a meeting or just have a field trip by the Battle Road Scenic Byway Committee to see the house.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it would also be great to have, go over to Lexington and see when their Battle Green and Center work is done, and when Wright Tavern gets up to speed and anything else. Okay, any other business or public comment? And if not, I think we're finished for today. Thanks, everybody. We're close to an hour. I think we all share a goal for an hour so we can be tight.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
You.
See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.